The Toronto Blue Jays have 4 home games left in the season and just 4 games left in the season overall. Now, who knows if we'll get to see them at the Rogers Center past those 4 games. And Brandon Belt called out the fans. He said that they need their support here down the stretch, and they do. I mean, the Rogers Center has been lively the past couple of days. Didn't change their results, but hopefully they can keep it going over the next 4 games here. And we also got some Buck Martinez praise to shout out because he just praised Daulton Varsho for the great stretch of play that he's been having. His defense has been phenomenal. His offense, his base running, he's been an all-around player for this Blue Jays team, and he's clicking at the right time. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Let's hope the Blue Jays can get back in the win column today against Luke Weaver and the New York Yankees, and theoretically, they should be able to. Obviously, we knew yesterday would be a tough matchup against Garrett Cole. They ended up getting 2 hits. They got shut out, and it was just not a pretty performance. And at least Brandon Belt got a couple of knocks, and he seems to be catching up to the fastball. So I guess that's the one silver lining that we could take out of yesterday's game. But to be shut out in 18 consecutive innings, Nick, it's just not a good look, especially after the way that they were performing in the Tampa Bay Rays series. It's just a total 180 for this team. But what could you expect realistically? I mean, that's the most Blue Jays thing that we've seen all year long. It's just you play amazing for 3 games, then you play down to the level of your opponent for the next 2, and that's just been the story of the season. Hopefully they can turn it around tonight because their magic number, it stays at 3.
Yep.
I mean, they haven't made up any ground since the end of that Tampa series, and they got to go ahead and get a win tonight.
Yeah,
It cannot be understated.
and it was a funny time that, Brendan Belt went out and called out the fans, and then the game after he does that, they, don't score a run again. So before we get into all that, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Your support has been unbelievable. We're on the road to 8,500, so that would mean a lot to us. And let's get into the first chapter here, which is, again, the Brandon Belt news. And this was from Hazel May just yesterday. And it was, if you're coming to the game tonight, Brandon Belt requests you make your presence known. We need the fans to be loud. These are important games for us. And this was, after the first game of the series against Michael King, where they put up a goose egg and their offense was really bad. They do it again in yesterday's game. And Peter, I'll pop up some more screenshots here in a second, but to say the least, the fans were not happy with Brandon Belt requesting this, specifically because you could see some of the tweets here. This was a couple people, fair request, also fair. Fans need the team to get more than 3 hits. We need the team to play baseball first. An article was made about it saying the Blue Jays fans aren't loving being asked to be loud by players because of how poor, the offense has been and the season as a whole. But also, he said that after a game where they gave the fans nothing to cheer about. Yesterday was the same thing, nothing to cheer about. Yes, they were going up against two of the pitchers, Michael King and Garrett Cole, have been some of the best pitchers, if not the best in Garrett Cole's case, in the majors or the AL this year. So, I don't know. I didn't really know what they expected, but the fans need to get louder, apparently, despite the team giving them nothing to cheer about.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. There was nothing to cheer about. Yeah, they had 3 hits in that game, and then they followed it up with a fantastic 2-hit performance the next night. So, Nick, it's been very well documented that I was at the 2 wild card games for the Mariners and the Blue Jays. There were 43,000 or 45,000 people in the stands in that game 1. Let me tell you something. I've never seen a quieter bunch of 45,000 people in my life. Ever since that first inning where Alek Manoah, and I can't believe I'm revisiting this here, but I'm just trying to make a point here, getting myself PTSD, but it is what it is. Cal Raleigh hit that 3-run home run in the first inning, dead silent. And it was the same way for 9 innings because Luis Castillo shoved. Luis Castillo was unhittable that day, and the only time they made any sort of noise was when Matt Chapman hit a double in the 9th inning. It was fairly academic by that point, and it didn't really matter. But yeah, I mean, they were quiet, and they were not engaged in the game just because the Blue Jays were giving them nothing to cheer about. And these past 2 games have been nothing different. The fans have showed up. They've been there. They've been at the Rogers Center. I saw a packed house yesterday and the day before. Doesn't matter, though. If there's nothing going on that field, if you're not getting any base runners, if you're not stringing any hits together, I mean, what's there to cheer about? I'm not going to get loud. I'm not going to lose my voice over a team that's getting 2 hit by Garrett Cole and the nearly sub 500 Yankees. No, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And the article kind of goes on to say that, sentiment is obvious. The Jays are on the verge of clinching a playoff spot and could do so as soon as tomorrow as of the time of this article. It's not going to happen. An home field advantage of a loud crowd can have a major impact. So it's sensible why a player would want that, but it's also sensible why the fans would be upset about it because there's nothing to cheer about when you're putting up no runs. And that's kind of been, we know that the Jays fans, we can talk about 2015 when it was, super loud during the playoffs, super loud during the regular season. The fans have been loud this year when they've been given things to cheer about. But when every single game is a pitcher's duel and it's not really, crazy offense, that's what the fans like. They like the crazy offense. So, and not even crazy offense, more than 2 hits is something that I think fans could cheer about. So it was just
It's
overall.
not an outrageous thing to ask for to have more than 2 hits in a baseball game.
Yeah, and
But yeah, I don't know. I think he's not out of line in what he's saying. I
bad
think
timing.
it's a legitimate concern, but yeah, bad timing.
Yeah, very, very bad timing, and it was hilarious, kind of that the game that he said that they go out and do a worse performance than the first game they had, which had the
And it
fans up
had
in
to be
arms.
Brandon Belt that said that as well. It had to be Brandon Belt, of
And
course,
at
the
least
most obscure guy on this baseball
he
team.
backed his side up with the double off Garrett Cole there, which the Jays unfortunately failed to run. But let us know what your thoughts are on that as we move on now to something a bit more lighthearted, a bit more fun, which is Buck Martinez. He gave Daulton Varsho some major praise, and this is going to segue into a little discussion here on Daulton Varsho, how we think his season was as a whole. He said Daulton Varsho is one of the best runners or best base runners I've ever seen, and that checks out. And Peter, Daulton Varsho this year, although the hitting hasn't been there, you can see the Baseball Savant page, the hitting numbers are not very good. He was right about the base running. You can see on top 96th percentile in base running, 97th percentile in fielding, 71st percentile in speed. So he has tremendous value. He's had a solid season overall. The offense hasn't been there. Hopefully he'll bounce back next year after having a full year with his new team under the belt. But what are your thoughts on Varsho's season as a whole, and Buck Martinez, praising the former catcher?
Yeah, I started laughing over there just because I imagined Buck Martinez saying it in his voice. Dalton Varsho is one of the best base runners that I've ever seen, and that's just why I started laughing over there. But yeah, he did say it on the broadcast as well. He alluded to it multiple times. I mean, he's obviously a big fan of Varsho just because of how hard that he plays out there on the baseball field, and he does the little things well. Obviously you can talk about his offense as much as you want, and it leaves a lot to be desired. But I do think he's going to have a bounce back year next year, and I think he's going to make a couple of mechanical adjustments and tap back into that power that he showed in Arizona because he has it. I mean, he's strong like a bull, and he's always playing a million miles an hour. Maybe he's just got to slow it down a little bit in that batter's box and trust his hands a little bit more. But I love Daulton Varsho. I think he's going to be super important down down the stretch of these last 4 games here. And if they do manage to make the playoffs, it's still a very likely possibility that they go ahead and do that. I think Daulton Varsho is going to start every game, and I think he's going to be a huge part in however many games that they play in the playoffs. I think he's built to be a postseason performer, and he just does all the little things well. Yes, we wish he had a better offensive season. Yes, we wish his counting stats were a little bit better, but it is what it is. It's better to heat up now than to never heat up at all in the season. So I've been happy with Daulton Varsho. It's been frustrating at times, but he is one of the best base runners I've ever seen. He is one of the best outfielders that I've ever seen, and hopefully he's a Blue Jay for a long time.
Yeah, I think he will be. And look at the stats on the left. Obviously, he only has a 657 OPS in 2023, but his previous 2 seasons in the league, he had over a 700. So, his home run numbers are down a little bit. He had 18 this year. So, again, a few adjustments. And, I mean, if he turns into a league average hitter, which is, 720 OPS even, that provides tremendous value. And he's already providing tremendous value. He's starting almost every single game the Jays have played. I think this is his career high in games started. So overall, a decent season for Daulton Varsho, all things considered. And I know a lot of fans are going out and looking at the trade, the Teoscar Hernandez, even replacing him with Teoscar Hernandez in the trade with Gabriel Moreno, and kind of comparing Moreno to Varsho. But I think at the end of the day, the trade worked out for both sides. But that'll wrap up the video. Let us know what your thoughts are on that. And Peter, any thoughts on any quick thoughts on the game tonight before we wrap up against Weaver in a game that, we still have a 90% chance to win the playoffs. It was 98.9 a couple of days ago. But if we get a win here, we're in a very, very good spot. If we lose here, it starts to get a bit more interesting regarding the playoffs. And I know a lot of you guys said yesterday we're counting our chickens before the eggs hatch too early or whatever it was. But I think we're in an okay spot. We have to win, though, tonight.
Yeah, I think you want to win tonight before things start to get a little bit too dicey in the playoff race. And the Mariners lost again yesterday, luckily, and maybe the Blue Jays are just playing chess and we're all playing checkers. Maybe
Wildcard
they're
3.
tanking for that third wild card spot. Maybe they want to avoid Tampa Bay, and maybe they want to avoid the Baltimore Orioles altogether in that side of the draw. I mean, it's very possible. but you also don't want to be doing that at this stage of the
Yeah.
season because you could very well miss the playoffs and it could bite you in the butt. So they got to go out there and win today. They got to win, I'd say, 2 more games before the end of the season, and they're pretty much a lock to make the playoffs. And if the Mariners keep losing, I mean, they have their series either tonight or tomorrow against the Texas Rangers. And if they can't get it done, then yeah, I mean, the Jays are going to get gifted a playoff spot, and I'll be okay with that.
Yeah, I just want to get in at this point. But thank you guys for watching. Let us know your thoughts on everything we discussed, and we'll see you tomorrow.